Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you again today. And yet again, I'm sorry for the subject that we have to go over. This is a very troubling time in America. Honestly, I wanted to do this video yesterday, but I was drained, emotionally drained by the news that we've seen and the reactions that have come from it. But I think it's an important issue that we need to discuss. We have to talk about what is going on in our nation. What is happening with the violence and the reaction to the violence that is going on at this time. Now, before we get into that, I do want to mention that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we welcome you and thank you for joining us. We do long-form political commentary on this channel. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you on DLive, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the social media that we can and that the internet overlords allow. We reach out with you to tell you what is going on and to hear what you have to say about it. And we do that for everyone around the world. We hope you will join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But to the case at hand and to the issue that is affecting America and is bleeding out to other countries in the world like Great Britain and France and many others. The question of black violence or violence against blacks in the United States. Is this an institutional event? Is this something that's happening from the police? And are there any trends? Is there a trend that we are seeing at this time about these kind of incidents? And we've been told for a long time that violence against blacks by police is rampant, that police are headhunting black individuals, especially black males. We've been told that this is something that we're seeing, and yet we have seen evidence that is not the case. In fact, more whites die in confrontations with police than blacks. At this moment, it's about 2-1 in the nation for the year of 2021. We know that 3 black individuals who are unarmed were killed by police, 5 white individuals by police in this year so far. So we have a question here. Is there a pattern? The evidence, the data, does not support that. But what is saying this? What is the evidence that we have out there? What patterns do we actually see? Something that not a lot of people ask about. Well, we want to go back and actually look at some of the issues that we know of, some of the stories that we have covered from 2020 going until today. And this is only a small slice of the news that is actually out there. So let's actually look at this. Now, you may not recall the name Hakim Littleton. We do. Hakim Littleton was a story from Detroit back on July 13th of 2020 when we were speaking about it. And in that story, if you may recall, it was initially stated Hakim Littleton, the man in the orange as you see in the video, is an unarmed black man who was gunned down mercilessly by the police. Except that's not supported by the evidence that actually came out. Body cam video showed very clearly Hakim Littleton, the man in the orange in the center of the video, as you can see it right now, is armed with a gun that he pulled out and pointed at a police officer's head at point blank range and attempted to murder that police officer. The police were not looking for him. There was a warrant for an entirely different individual. That is the reason why the police were on the scene. Hakim took it in his own volition to pull out a gun and to attempt to murder a police officer. The response was that he was shot and he was killed. Now, as a consequence of him being shot, the initial response by the news media were to say that a black man, a young black man, had been killed by police. The word on the street, promoted by far-left activist organizations in Detroit, said that this was an unarmed man, repeated by several in the news media at that time, initially, saying he was unarmed and that this was just another murder, just like George Floyd. The result were riots and protests. Let's take another case that happened in 2020, and let's see what happened there. In this case, we're talking about Ricardo Munoz, a case in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And in that case, we see that Ricardo Munoz burst out of a door, attacked an officer, and in 4 seconds was gunned down. And as you can see in the video, Ricardo was armed with a knife. And he, in the video, as seen, bursts out of a door, rushes towards the police officer, and is attempting to murder him. He was shot and he was killed. The result of that incident was again in Lancaster, PA, on September 14th of 2020, as we reported. He was killed, and there were riots and there were protests because it was again an unarmed, defenseless man who was mentally unstable was killed mercilessly by police. The body cam video disproved that yet again. So again, we see a case where police were blamed for the murder of people of color. Again, we see an incident where individuals were initially stated as being unarmed. Statements that were being made by protesters and individuals in the Black Lives Matter, the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, members of the far left fanatical activist wing of the Democratic Party, came out and made absolutely untrue statements about the situation that inflamed the groups and citizens in those localities that caused rioting and protests. And in each case, this has not been true. Well, let's look at what most recently happened. And this is in Akron, Ohio, right outside of Columbus. And we saw on the news at the same time that the George Floyd decision was being made, there was a police call to look into an incident where a woman, a young girl, KhiaBryant, was in the process of stabbing a woman. Literally in the process of stabbing a woman in front of a police officer. At the same time, a second woman was being assaulted by this, I believe, this male who may or may not be black. I could not see clearly from the video, who was literally trying to curb stop another woman who is just off screen. But as we can see in the video, this is Micaiah. And in case that image is not clear, this is the image. This is Micaiah with a knife about to stab a woman in the pink and potentially killing her. And what we saw is that the news media responded in the most illogical way possible. Prior to the actual body cam video being shown, the response, as you can see on screen now, and this is from yesterday, April 21st. And the video shows us, and we can see, there was the ABC, Columbus police shoot teenage girl holding a knife in Ohio. I'm sorry. And as you can see in the photo I just showed you, she wasn't just holding a knife. She was attempting to stab someone. She was in the act of attempted murder in front of a police officer whose duty is to protect and serve, to protect individuals from being murdered. Let's see what else we see. YouTube. Police officer shot and killed teen girl holding a knife. U.S. police shoot, kill black teenage girl holding knife in Ohio from Al Jazeera. Columbus police shoot, kill teenage girl. Ohio police officer shot and killed teen girl holding knife. NBC. And by the way, that was CNN. NBC. Ohio police fatally shoot teen girl after call about knife attack. Columbus police officer fatally shoots girl swinging knife. At least U.S. News had some attempt at actually reporting the actual news. WFSB. Body cam video shows police officer shoot teenage girl. Do you notice the thing that's common in all of these? And by the way, we can go back and you can look at the news coverage of Ricardo Munoz. You can look at the coverage of Hakim Littleton. And if you're looking at the initial responses by the news media, they're all doing the same thing. They're saying police are attacking this person of color, but they're not telling you what the context is. In fact, in many cases, like with Hakim, and again, as we see just on the 21st, the 20th and 21st, in the case of KhiaBryant, the actual information being told is not accurate at all. Again, over and over again, the news media are manipulating the emotions of the public. We see in each and every one of these cases, this is an individual that has a violent, if not deadly intent, actively trying to harm others, actively trying to kill someone. And let me say it again. Micaiah was actively trying to kill someone. But yet the news media, knowing that the majority of the public only reads headlines, is very happy to tell you that she was holding a knife to give you an impression that she was not going to be killed. In fact, some of them went further. The Columbus Dispatch says Bryant then appears to swing a knife at a girl who is on the hood of a car, and the officer fires his weapon, what sounds like 4 times, striking Bryant, who died a short time later. In fact, the officer did fire 4 times. But I want you to focus on this. Appears to swing a knife? Appears to swing a knife. We've seen the video. It's been across the nation. She wasn't appearing to swing a knife. She was, in fact, attempting to stab someone, which looks to be a potentially fatal blow. It is at the least attempted murder. It is absolutely aggravated assault. But according to the news media, in particular the Columbus Dispatch, she appears to swing a knife. Why in the world would the news media say things in that manner? Why would they discount what was actually happening? Why would they try and reword the story? And if you're thinking that, well, Mike, that was yesterday, that was April 21st, we've now seen the news media, they've come out and they've corrected the story. We know the truth. We've seen the video. And yet, when you go and look for the top stories at this moment, what you're seeing is officer identified in fatal shooting of KhiaBryant, 16. That's not saying that Micaiah was stabbing someone. Columbus police shoot and kill black teenage girl. That's WITF news agency, not correcting it. Police officer, Ohio cops shoot 16-year-old KhiaBryant. That's not telling you what happened. Ohio police fatally shoot teenage girl. Yahoo News, not telling you what's happened. The Washington Examiner actually says media angling for a repeat of last year's violence, taking a different approach on this story altogether. But look at the news stories. They're not saying KhiaBryant, who was attempting to stab another woman, was killed by police. Teenage girl attempted to stab or murder someone and was shot by police. You're not seeing that headline. These headlines, this is current, and I will update this for you as we speak. This is a refresh right now. Officer identified in fatal shooting, police shooting of KhiaBryant, 16, who attacked 2 with knife. Notice how that's the very end of that. Not every news services or news service or search engine is going to show the end of this statement. They're only going to get this beginning. And KBN, knows this. Columbus police shoot and kill black teenage girl shown on video holding a knife. They know that most services, that social media and other services, won't show this entire title, which is why they're putting in the last part. But notice, she's with a knife. She's holding a knife. Police shooting, Ohio cop shoot 16-year-old KhiaBryant as dem day judge. I don't know what this is supposed to mean. But again, where are they leading with? Police shoot 16-year-old. She's black. Notice the photo they're showing, in general, aren't showing what's happening. Let's go and see what's view all. Police shoot and kill teenage girl. KhiaBryant fatally shot by police in Columbus. That's from the Mary Sue. Black teenage girl, KhiaBryant, fatally shot police in Columbus, Ohio. I don't see any updates. Hey, Mr. Policeman, stop killing our kids. Completely out of context. For overdue police reform, George Floyd may be our Emmett Till. Again, you're not seeing corrections to the story. Look how nicely they're putting this image, knowing you're not going to see the full context. As you can see right here, they're not showing you the full context. They're not showing you this scene. So what are we seeing? We're seeing a manipulation in each and every one of these cases, and we see this constantly, where a justified shooting by police has been mischaracterized, and you're being told, oh no, these are defenseless, unarmed individuals just capriciously targeted by police for no reason, willy-nilly, actively overreaching and abusing their power and just murdering them. Where's the difference in these stories? Look back on them. We've covered them in real time. And we've seen over and over and over again that when we see these stories, they are constantly being mischaracterized. So why is that happening? Because it's hard to spot the difference. An individual with a knife, they're holding the knife, not stabbing someone, not attempting to murder them. They have a gun. Oh, they were unarmed. What's going on here? What's the difference in these stories? The difference in the stories is in time. Some of these are stories from 2020, and now we have it in 2021. And the direct desire by the news media to incite further violence. In each case, we have seen protests take place. And often we've seen riots, violent riots, or actually, that's redundant. We've seen violence and riots that have occurred. We've seen an outrage, and we've seen political groups, which are Black Lives Matter. It is a political organization. We've seen Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, a political organization. We've seen Antifa, a political organization. All of them on the left, part of the Democratic Party, incite and encourage people into violence and destruction, destroying their own homes, destroying their own communities, destroying their own businesses for a false narrative, for something that isn't true. And the destruction of their communities that lasts for decades, businesses that will not be replaced, and costs that will be higher, joblessness and unemployment that will go up. And as we have seen consistently throughout the nation and over history, we've seen consistently the more people are unemployed, the more they are forced into poverty, the more that we see drugs being used and that causing more crime. The recipe is very, very bad. But you said to me, Mike, that's not the only kind of stories that are out there. Yes, that happens, but what else has happened? Well, we can go back to, do you recall Rayshard Brooks? When Don Lemon excused the murder of a child in Atlanta because Rayshard Brooks resisted arrest and got shot to death, which was reported as police kill an unarmed man, that they killed a man in the back. They leave out the fact that Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. He had become armed with a taser, that he was in a direct conflict with police, and that he had resisted arrest and he didn't have to. Or maybe you want to think about more recently with Dante Wright, who most recently on April 12th resisted arrest, was trying to flee from police officers because he knew he had a charge, a warrant for a gun charge, for a violence charge, and he's trying to escape from police. And in that ensuing struggle, he was then killed. Now, you can say in many of these cases, well, maybe the police shouldn't have used as much force as they did. Well, maybe these individuals shouldn't have violently resisted arrest. Maybe they shouldn't have created the crimes, the underlying crimes that caused them to be in a situation that escalated and resulted in their death. I know that there's going to be a lot of the BLM types out there, the Antifa types out there that are going to be very angry. They're going to hate this video. But let's be honest. What's the thing that we're not seeing that's different in each and every one of these cases each time we go over them? Not only is it resisting arrest in many cases, but there is an act of violence that is going on. Hakim Littleton is attempting to kill an officer. Ricardo Munoz is attempting to kill an officer. KhiaBryant is attempting to kill a woman. We see that in the case of Rashard Brooks, that he was attempting to fight and kill officers and resisting arrest. We see that Dante Wright had prior gun violence charges against him, resisted arrest, was being violent. If we want to resolve this issue, we have to deal with the first thing first. We have to deal with the violence. We have to deal with the crime that is actually happening. We need to get to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem, while it may be partially the police fault, it is absolutely the fault of criminals taking on violent actions. And if we want to be honest with ourselves, we have to say, there's a problem, and it's violence. That these individuals are committing crimes and violent crimes at that, and they are exasperating and creating an environment where further violence ensues. The answer to this is not protest. Protests don't stop the criminals from committing violent acts. The answer isn't riots, because riots don't stop criminals from committing criminal acts. In fact, both of those things, protests, violent protests, and riots, they actually do more harm to those communities than the crimes themselves, than the resulting after effect of those crimes. We have to look at this honestly. We have to have an honest and real conversation about this, folks. Because when you're looking for the difference, you find a lot of similarities. And the similarity isn't that ex-black person was killed by police. What we see consistently is ex-criminal committed a crime and then resisted arrest in many cases, and that resulted in their death. Or in the case of Jacob Blake, being shot by police and affected for the rest of his life. These are criminals over and over again. Why are we celebrating criminals? Nancy Pelosi is celebrating the life of George Floyd, a criminal, a violent drug-addicted criminal, whose actions directly contributed and caused his death. Yes, George Floyd died badly. Yes, Officer Chauvin committed manslaughter, no doubt. And yes, he should be punished to the full extent of the law for that crime. I agree. But if George Floyd wasn't the criminal that he was, if he was not resisting in the manner that he was, he would not have died. And we can see over and over again that these are the cases. Yet the news media, as I have shown you, is very actively trying to promote violence. They are inciting and they are encouraging people by mistitling, by misstating facts, by spreading rumors, innuendo, and and a distrust of the police that only magnifies the situations, that only creates an environment of violence. When you try and spot the differences, it's hard to see them. When you're looking at the similarities, it's glaringly obvious. The news media is misrepresenting things. And from the consistency and the lack of correction that we have seen, they're doing it on purpose. They know you're not reading the full story. And when you do read the full story, they misrepresent a lot of the facts, as we have seen with what we showed you here as an example from the Columbus Dispatch. And you can go to CNN and you'll see the same thing. MSNBC, you will see the same articles that they didn't correct. They still exist. So you have to wonder, what is really going on? I can tell you this. It is sad to see anyone lose their life. And we do not want anyone to die. We do believe that any police officer who has abused their power should be punished to the full extent of the law. Absolutely. And we believe police reform of some sort might be part of the process of trying to fix these kinds of situations. At the same time, police doing their job, defending their lives, defending the lives of others is not the same thing. There are justified shootings that happen. And the underlying problem in each of these cases, whether it's from George Floyd or KhiaBryant, and many of the cases in between, it's the crime and the criminals that are doing this. Let's be honest. There's your problem. There's the issue that needs to be fixed. We need to deal with the black on black crime, which is 90% of the reason why black males die in the United States every year. Over 6,000 of them every year. We need to deal with the fact that we have cities like Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit that lead much of the world, not just the nation, much of the world in black on black violence. Much of that is through gun violence. The fact is, the similarities are far more important than the differences. And the similarities all point to a root problem that isn't the police. It's the community, it's the culture, it's the criminality that is going on. If BLM, if Plot, if Antifa, if the far left, the Democratic Socialists of America, if people like Nancy Pelosi, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, if they want to really help people, how about you focus on the root problem? And that problem, quite honestly, isn't the police. It's something else. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think that we've misunderstood the facts. Perhaps you think we misunderstand the actual data that is out there. Perhaps you think that there are similarities or differences in each of these cases. We want to hear what you have to say. Please leave a comment. And of course, we want to see you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time during our live stream on all social media, talking about this and many other cases. If you found this to be informative or interesting, please give us a like and a share. And most of all, please subscribe so that more people can get involved and execute their free speech in leaving their comments and thoughts. We thank you and we hope you'll be well.